Hey guys, welcome back to Hook with Anime. If you like the video, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Deep within a seemingly endless void, Kurama was desperately pumping every scrap of chakra he had left into his host. After finally sealing Kagaya, that damn Uchiha brat had betrayed them. Somehow, the vast amounts of energy released from Naruto's Rasengan and Sasuke's Chidori colliding had created a rip in space and time, throwing Naruto into a space between dimensions. Unfortunately, this plane of existence was literally trying to tear them apart. Searching desperately for a way out, the monolithic fox sensed a distortion in the space-time plane caused by some sort of temporal disruption. Channeling his last bit of chakra, Kurama was able to create a tear just large enough for them to pass through, barely keeping it open until they were through. K up, wake up. Ga. Naruto flailed, attempting to jump to a defensive position. However, as he attempted to brace himself on his non-existent right arm, it looked much more like a flailing fish than the trained warrior he was. Groaning, he managed to sit up, glaring at the missing limb, and look around at the strange buildings. Oi, where the hell are we? How should I know? You're the idiot that blasted us into the dimensional void. Do you know how much energy it took to just keep us alive, not to mention open a portal into another dimension? Hey, it's not like I told the Tem to go crazy. Tisk. He was always crazy. All Uchihas are. Hey, Itachi wasn't so bad. He killed his entire family in one night. The fox deadpanned. Point taken. So, we're in another dimension, we have no idea how to get home, and I'm missing an arm. Am I missing anything? Besides the fact that time seems to be frozen, no. Oh, and time's frozen. Cool. Honestly, after everything that just happened, time breaking didn't seem that strange anymore. So, what no, he was cut off by a purple blur shooting past his alley, followed closely behind by another, this time black and orange, blur. The hell was that? Raven was not having a good birthday. Instead of being able to enjoy the party that her friends had set up, a gesture that she secretly enjoyed but would never tell them, she was being chased by Robin's apparently undead arch-foe. And that wasn't even the worst part. He hadn't been revived by just anyone, oh no. Trigon, her quite literally demon of a father, had brought him back to mark her as his portal. After Slade had separated her from Robin at the church, she'd been desperately trying to escape him. Flying out from between the buildings she'd flown through to escape his arms of fire, she yells her mantra, Azeroth Metrian Zinthos. Using most of her remaining energy, she slammed the two buildings together in an attempt to stop him. Looking at the dust billowing out, she sighed in relief, only to jerk up in surprise as Slade burst from them in an explosion. She gasped as he tackled her, and barely had any time to brace herself as they crashed on top of a tower. She struggled to her feet and tried to run again, only for Slade to snag her by her cowl, ripping it off. What you have concealed you shall become. He exclaims as she fell down, revealing more runes on her now exposed back. You have no other choice. No. She charges at him, desperately channeling her remaining energy around her to hopefully drive him back. However, he effortlessly caught her hand, dispelling the claw of black energy. The message will be delivered. Slade hissed, grabbing her other arm. Your destiny shall be fulfilled. Struggling against his grip, Raven groaned in pain as the glowing red runes covered the rest of her body, ripping most of her clothes. Red energy beamed from her eyes as the sun and moon rapidly switched places while her hair grew out. Once completed, Slade released his grip, allowing her to collapse to her knees in exhaustion. She looked around, only to discover that the city had become apocalyptic ruins, surrounded by a sea lava. Off in the distance, she could see the ruins of Titan's Tower, and around the city, everyone, including her friends, had been turned to stone. No, she gasped, horrified. Yes, Slade dragged out. Look at it. Drink it in. Behold the world you are destined to create. Raven could only stare in disbelief as Trigons rose, releasing a deafening roar. Grabbing her head in pain, she tried to block it all out. No, I won't do it. This is just a vision. This can't be real. She flinched as she felt a metallic grip on her shoulders. This is the future. Your future. It began the day you were born, and nothing can stop it. He stated in her ear. This will come to pass. I will make sure of it. You're going to destroy the world, Raven. It's written all over yo. Konoha Senpu. Slade was interrupted as a sandaled foot slammed into his face, driving him away from Raven. The new arrival steadied her with his good left arm, not noticing the small spark of black energy that passed between them at the contact. Hey, are you okay? Raven heard as she turned to face the man. She jerked back, startled by his appearance. He looked like he'd just been through a damn war zone. His pants and chainmail shirt were in tatters, his face looked like Mammoth had repeatedly jumped on it, and he was missing an arm. God, it was still leaking blood. Noticing her reaction, Naruto rushed to reassure her. Hey, it's alright, I'm not going to hurt you. After the blurs had rushed past, he'd gone to investigate, wondering just what the hell was moving when time was frozen. When Kurama had informed him that they were both using demonic energy, even if hers was suppressed, he decided to just watch. Don't get him wrong, he wasn't weary of the girl. With his negative emotion sensing, he could tell she wasn't evil. However, he barely had a fresh genin's worth of chakra and didn't think he'd be much use in a large-scale fight. His belief had seemed justified as he watched her slam two flippin' buildings together. However, when the masked man started ripping her clothes off seriously, another one-eyed masked man, he decided to intervene anyway. Using what little chakra he had left, he'd scaled the tower to find the man grabbing her from behind. Borrowing a move from Bushy Brows, he'd kicked him away. You're not going to hurt me. What about you? How are you even standing? Raven uncharacteristically shouted in disbelief, having momentarily forgotten about Slade. With everything that had happened, she found it impossible to maintain her usual control over her emotions. What in Azeroth happened to you? Hey, well, it's kind of a long story. He chucked nervously, scratching the back of his head with his hand. Can we talk about it after dealing with the zombie dude? Upon hearing the word, dude, despite everything, she had to resist the urge to facepalm. Not another beast boy, please, I can't handle two of them. She shook her head. Focus, Slade's getting back up. Yo zombie man, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave the cute girl alone. Cute. Even as her eyebrow twitched, Raven felt a faint blush spread across her cheeks. Slade looked at him, honestly, he was impressed by the strange young man. Despite his severe injuries, he was still standing strong with a warrior's air about him. If I wasn't serving Trigon, he would have made a great apprentice. For some reason, Naruto felt a shiver crawl down his spine. Why do I feel like Orochimaru's lusting after me? Focus, brat. That demonic energy coming off him isn't his. It's from a very powerful demon. His master is dangerous, especially in the state we're in. Expecting a fight, he was surprised when the masked man jumped away, saying, "We'll meet again." Huh, I wonder what he said. Turning back to the girl, intent to ask what was going on, he paused, finally getting a good look at her face. Unbidden, a blush spread across his face. Cammy, she's gorgeous. Focus, this is not the time to stare into her pretty eyes. Wait, I mean. Hey, looks like that perverted old man finally got to you. No, I am not a pervert. I've resisted Ero Sennin's influence for 4 years. I will not fail now. While Naruto was talking to the voice in his head, Raven was studying him just as intently, numerous questions flying through her mind. Who is he? Why did he help me? Are those whisker marks? Coming back to her senses, she asks, "Who are you?" Snapping out of his daze, the man gave her an impossibly bright smile that made her cheeks flush. "Oh, I'm Naruto Uzumaki. What's your name?" Taken aback by his cheery attitude despite his injuries, she hesitantly answered, "I'm Raven." "Nice to meet you, Raven-chan." He reached forward for a fist bump, but with the crisis apparently over and his adrenaline gone, he fell, finally succumbing to exhaustion, hearing a surprised, "Naruto." Before the blackness overtook him. After the teen, Naruto, collapsed, her powers flared, returning time to its normal state. She just barely managed to catch him before he hit the roof. Afterwards, Robin had shown up. She'd eventually managed to convince him to bring him to the tower instead of the hospital, weary of the strange man. However, he'd warmed up to him after she told him how Naruto drop-kicked Slade in the face. After dropping him off in the medical wing of the tower and ensuring he was stable, she'd gone to her room to replace her clothes before healing him. The boy, Naruto, was a mystery. He'd somehow resisted whatever she'd done to freeze time, saved her from an undead Slade, all while horribly injured. It was that last part that had her both confused and worried. So, she hurriedly put on fresh clothes before rushing down to the medical ward. "I'm telling you, Rob, he's human. Full DNA scans, X-rays, and infrared readings come back as normal. Then how on earth did he get up there? Better yet, how was he moving after Raven froze time? Weren't you doing the moving too, friend Robin? Starfire acts. Only because Raven freed Mai from her spell. From what she told me, he just came out of nowhere and kicked Slade in the face. Dude, he drop-kicked Slade. Ha 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 ha. That's awesome. Behind them, the door swung open and Raven entered the room. Friend Raven, it is glorious to see that you are unharmed. Tell me, who is this man? His name's Naruto, she responded in her usual deadpan. Walking up to him, a shimmering blue aura enveloped her hands. Ooh, are you doing your glowy hands thingy to heal him? Beast Boy acts. Yes. While this was going on, Robin was talking quietly to Cyborg. Are you sure he's safe? Well, he's human, I can tell you that much, but safe? No clue. Why are you so worked up about him? I mean, he saved Raven. We don't know anything about him, and he just shows up out of the blue right when Slade comes back from the dead weird fire magic. Doesn't it seem a little suspicious to you? Back with Raven, she was examining his body. How does he have so many scars? One in particular caught her attention. Right over his heart was a fist-sized scar. She could tell it had pierced him deeply. How did he survive that? Putting it out of her mind for the moment, she sat on the edge of the bed and placed her hands on his chest, then gasped at the flood of emotions. So much pain and grief, it almost made her cry. But even more powerful, far surpassing his pain, was hope and love. It wasn't a directed love, like one might have for their spouse, but a general sense of love directed towards everything around him that seemed to shine from his very soul. Just feeling it comforted her in a way she hadn't felt since she was a child in her mother's arms back on Azeroth. Despite the comfort, it was just so strong that she jerked back in surprise. Raven, are you alright? Robin asks, figuring that the boy had done something to her. Yeah, I'm fine. After a moment to calm herself, she said, he just feels everything so strongly, it surprised me. What do you mean? Is he a threat? No, she was cut off by a groan from the bed. Quickly turning back to him, she watched in astonishment as his eyes fluttered open. Having been woken up by a burst of energy that seemed to jump-start his chakra network, Naruto looked around, confused, until he saw her familiar face. Oi, Raven-chan, where are we? We're in the med bay of Titan's Tower. How are you awake? With your injuries you should have been unconscious for a few days at least. I've always been a fast healer. So, what's Titan's Tower? You don't know what Titan's Tower is? No, I just got here, I don't really know much about this place. Now, this piqued her curiosity. Most people at least knew who the Teen Titans were, even if they didn't live in Jump City. So where are you from? Oh, I'm from another dimension. Naruto replied casually. Idiot. What? We can trust her. You literally just met her. He deadpanned. So, she's nice. You just think she's hot. Yeah, wait, no. Naruto. Wah. Looking up, he was met with an annoyed Raven. Finally, Raven snapped in agitation. I've been trying to get to her attention for over a minute. Her expression shifted to one of concern. Are you okay? Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just arguing with Kurama. Who's Kurama? Idiot. The fox repeated. Oh, heh. While he trusted her, he hadn't been planning on telling her about Kurama. Then again, she had demonic energy of her own, so she probably wouldn't react too badly. Kurama's the fox demon sealed in my gut. He replied casually so as to make it seem like it wasn't a big deal. Judging from how she recoiled slightly, he hadn't been too successful. But don't worry, he added hastily, he's cool. He's cool, Raven replied skeptically. Yeah, the furball used to threaten to eat me a lot, but we're friends now. He said with an eye smile reminiscent of Kakashi. Furball. I'll show you furball. Kurama cried indignantly. I was just trying to make you seem less threatening. Naruto reasoned. She looked at him with a sort of cautious hope. So, you don't think that they're all evil? Of course not. They're like people, they're not inherently good or evil. Morio and the Jubi were bastards, but demons like you and the Biju are pretty nice. Raven froze at that. What do you mean, like me? How did he know? Why isn't he afraid of me? Naruto tilted his head, looking confused. You're not a demon, I mean, you have demonic energy. Are you a container then? Raven couldn't help but relax slightly at his nonchalant question. He was asking that like he was just talking about the weather. No, I'm not. Coming to a decision, she continued. I'm a Hanyu. She mentally braced for rejection, For him to fear her like the monks of Azeroth did. She really shouldn't have bothered. Really? How does that work? She smiled, happy that he didn't seem to care, but also confused at the question. What do you mean? I mean, how'd your parents, he trailed off awkwardly. Raven blushed an atomic red, made all the more obvious by her pale complexion. I idiot. Why are you asking that? Recognizing her female fury, something ingrained in him from Sakura and Ba-chan, Naruto rushed to defend himself. I mean, Kurama doesn't have a, penis, so, I mean. As steam started pouring from Raven's ears, Kurama decided that now would be a good time to interject. That's because I'm a girl, brat. What? So startled by this revelation, Naruto began yelling out loud. Raven stumbled back and fell from the bed. Off to the side, Starfire jerked in surprise, but maintained her grip on the other titans, whom she was restraining for some reason. You're a girl. How? I mean, you sound like a guy. Instantly realizing what he said, and fearing a Sakura-like reaction, he quickly backpedaled. Wait, I didn't mean it like that. You have a lovely voice. And bhuahahahahaha, Kurama bellowed, unable to hold it in anymore. You actually thought I was a girl. Raven watched the odd display, growing increasingly confused as Naruto's panic turned to rage. The hell, Kurama? That wasn't funny. By the sage, I can't breathe. Naruto's impending shouting match with his still howling partner was cut off by Raven. Naruto, stop yelling. She was annoyed that he was ignoring her again for his, apparently female, demon friend. For some reason, that irked her. Oh, sorry. Naruto apologized, his attitude pulling a full 180. Kurama was being a jerk. He pouted. Her irritation battled with her curiosity over what the fox could have done as she asked, what did she do? He convinced me he was a girl. Just because I called him a furball. Which he is. The last comment was more aimed at said furball than Raven, but he was too busy laughing to care. As his shouting finally began to make sense, her irritation gave way to mirth at the blonde's misfortune, and she started giggling. The giggling soon turned into full-blown laughter, joining Kurama. This, more than anything, startled Starfire enough that she released her grip on the other titans, as they all stared in shock at their teammate. Dudes, Beast Boy whispered. Raven's laughing. I don't believe it. Cyborg muttered in disbelief as he began a system-wide scan of his systems. Robin just stared on in shock. Glorious. Is this not a wonderful courtship? Starfire's exclamation snapped everyone out of their disbelief, or laughter in Raven's case, to stare at the red-haired alien. Courtship. Raven shouted, grabbing Naruto's attention. Courtship. He mumbled in confusion. Yes. Starfire confirmed, seemingly ignorant of the Raven's shock. Oh, this is a most wondrous occasion. We must prepare a Tamaranian feast to celebrate. As her teammates paled in horror, Raven sputtered, we're not courting Starfire. Starfire deflated at this. She'd been so sure they were involved. She'd never seen her friend so animated before. And her powers weren't even flaring up. She knew that her friend couldn't control them when excited, so when this mystery boy had shown up and seemingly allowed her to express herself without fear, she'd been over the moon. So, she'd grabbed her friends and covered their mouths so as to keep them from ruining any moment they might have. But apparently, they weren't courting. A smile formed. They weren't courting, yet. Naruto, was it? Now that he was free from Starfire's clutches, not that he minded being there in the first place, Robin decided that it was time for him to get answers. First, though, do you mind speaking English? Honestly, why the two of them were conversing in different languages was beyond him. Raven-chan, what's he saying? Honestly, was Raven the only one that could talk normally? She looked between them, confused. What are you two talking about? Now that the others were around, she found it easier to slip into her usual deadpan voice. She idly wondered why it was so difficult before. Robin looked at her oddly. I need to question him, and he obviously understands English since he was talking to you. While they were talking, Naruto took the time to finally observe the other people in the room. First there was a little green dude with fangs. Thanks to his sage training, he could feel natural energy flowing through him. He's not a sage, I can tell that much. Hell, Raven's the only one with working chakra pathways. It's like he's a part of nature. Then there was a man that looked like he was from Kumo. Or he would, except he was covered in metal. He kind of reminded him of Sasori. Or maybe Nagato's Asura path. Then there was the girl in spandex. She looked eerily similar to his mom. He just hoped she didn't have her temper. Q shudder. Finally, there was the masked boy. Honestly, with the mask, gravity-defying hair, and air of command, he was half convinced that he was Kakashi's interdimensional lovechild. Odd, Naruto thought. Why are they talking in two different languages? Hey, Raven-chan, can you tell him to speak in elemental? He obviously knows it. Now, unlike a certain blonde in the room, Raven was a pretty quick thinker, and was able to figure out what was happening. UHG. She pinched the bridge of her nose in frustration. Naruto, you are hearing me in your language, correct? He nodded, confused as to why she acts that. Robin, when I'm talking to him, am I speaking English, or am I speaking his language? She acts, even though she was pretty sure, she still wanted confirmation. English, he replied, and he could guess where she was going with this. Are you saying that? Yes. Naruto and I hear each other in our native tongues, while to everyone else we are speaking different languages. For some reason, she felt the urge to add something to her statement. Not seeing any harm, she did so. How troublesome. Naruto snickered at how much she sounded like Inara. She'd probably get along well with Shikamaru. He stopped snickering. For some reason the thought bothered him. Oi Kurama, if Raven-chan's not speaking elemental, how do I know what she's saying? Do you know why? Robin asks. She shook her head. Does he? He asks, indicating Naruto. I doubt it. Turning back, she asks, hey, Naruto. He didn't respond. Judging by the glassy look in his eyes, she figured he was talking to Kurama about it. After his eyes regained clarity, she asks, so, what did Kurama say? Kurama. The other titans wondered. He wondered how she knew he was talking to the Biju. Oh yeah. Apparently whatever Fuinjutsu marks zombie tem put on you put your energy in a state of, Kurama. He asks, having forgotten the word he used. Flux. Yeah, flux, and apparently a little bit of it entered my chakra network, creating a kind of mental bond. Whereas before she was just annoyed, now Raven felt a touch of fear. Her mind was dangerous. For anyone. Naruto, how strong is this bond? If you're worried about me hearing your thoughts, don't worry. Kurama said it's barely strong enough to overcome the language barrier as it is. She let out a sigh of relief at that. What bond? She heard Robin ask. And who's Kurama? Raven looked back at the other titans. Beast Boy and Cyborg looked confused, Robin looked concerned, and Starfire seemed strangely happy, even for her. Whatever Slade did to me made my powers temporarily unstable, and when Naruto caught me, some of my energy merged with his, creating a weak mental bond that lets us understand each other. As for Kurama, she trailed off, looking at Naruto. Being a half-demon, she knew how hard it was to reveal something like that to others. Honestly, she was surprised that he'd told her so readily. Naruto, seeing her unasked question, merely smiled, and shrugged in permission. Despite said permission, Raven didn't really feel like convincing her team that a demon wasn't a threat, so she compromised. He's a fox spirit sealed inside Naruto. Don't ax, she added, cutting off Robin's pending question. A bit miffed that she'd cut him off from asking about the spirit, he turned to Cyborg. Well, what language is he speaking? It sounds like Japanese. Cyborg, who had his arm display showing, replied, yeah, it has a similar structure, but the words are completely different. The only thing the computer understands are the honorifics. Honor what's its? Beast Boy asks. Honorifics. They're kind of like Mr. or Mrs. that you add onto a name, but there are a lot more of them. When he was talking about the why he could talk to Raven, he mentioned, Tem, which means bastard. I'm pretty sure he was talking about Slade there. What about Chan? Raven asks. She was curious. He'd added it to her name several times. Cyborg, though, looked worried. He wasn't sure how she'd react, and he was worried about the kid. Yeah, don't wanna, no. Cyborg, she warned. On the inside though, she was worried. Was it an insult of some kind? She thought he liked her, he seemed nice enough to her, but why wouldn't Cyborg want to tell her? Yeah, really don't, he complained, trying to save Naruto from her wrath. After all, most guys that hit on her ended up in a brick wall. Unfortunately, his efforts were in vain, as black energy surrounded him and dragged him by the arm to where she could read the display there. Chan, a term of endearment meaning cute, often used for close female friends or lovers. As Raven read aloud, she felt her face heating up. She released Cyborg, allowing him and the other Titans to back away from the soon-to-be more injured blonde while praying for his swift recovery. Addressing Naruto, still red in the face, she asks, "Is that what Chan means?" The Titans were shaking their heads at him from behind her back, begging him to deny it, for his sake. Oblivious to their warning, he nodded, smiling. "Yeah, you're really pretty, and you're taking care of me, which makes us friends. So I call you Chan." His smile fell after a moment. "Unless you don't want me to, of course," he said, frowning. Raven felt her heart skip a beat when he called her pretty, then felt it fall when he offered to stop calling her that. "No," she replied, a bit hastily. "It's fine." She continued, calmer. Naruto's smile returned full force as the other's jaws dropped to the ground. Shaking his head to clear it, Beast Boy shouted, "Dude. Who is this guy?" First drop kicks Slade, then he talks to Raven in her with a mind link thingy, he's possessed by a fox ghost, and most importantly he flirted with Raven. And he's still alive. Embarrassed and wanting to change the subject, Raven choked out, "Well, he's also from another dimension." Raven groggily sat up in her bed, looking at her alarm clock, 8:37. Usually, she would have woken up earlier to watch the sunrise before meditating. As it was, she figured she still had some time to meditate before getting some tea. She smiled fondly, remembering the previous night. After everyone had settled down and introduced themselves, they'd decided to allow Naruto to stay at the tower, seeing as how he had no way back to his home dimension. When she'd accidentally mentioned that it was her birthday, Naruto had insisted on celebrating. She'd initially refused, prompting him to ask the other Titans for help convincing her. She laughed softly, remembering how he'd tried to pantomime his words as the others looked on in confusion. Eventually though, he got his point across, and together they managed to convince her celebrate. It had been surprisingly fun, even if she had to play translator. She frowned, remembering how he'd been mostly healed by the time she left for bed. Normally, she'd be happy to see her friend. Yes, her friend healing, but all she could think about was how injured he must have been before rescuing her. With how fast he healed, he must have either been near death no less than a day before meeting up with them, or injured just minutes before. Yet, he still risked himself to help her. Going through the door leading to the roof, she paused after a few steps, having finally spotted the figure at the edge. He was sitting so perfectly still that she'd missed him at first. She recognized his posture, he was meditating. No, there was more to it than that. She could feel the flow of powerful energies centered around him, almost as if he was acting as a conduit for it. Her eyes widened in realization. "You're a sage," she breathed. Sages, contrary to popular belief, were not just wise old wanderers. Sages were people who had become so in tune with nature that they became one with it, thus able to wield its power. Unlike the green, that poison ivy and swamp thing use, sages were not limited to the energies of plants, instead they were able to draw upon energy from every aspect of nature. As he turned to face her, she noticed that his eyes had changed. Gone were the sparkling sapphire orbs, instead, yellow toad-like eyes stared back at her, surrounded by red pigmentation. Last night, instead of sleeping, he'd gone into his mindscape to talk with Kurama about their situation. According to him, they were stuck in this dimension. While the toads could reverse summon him to Mount Myoboku, they could not summon him back to the elemental nations. The summoning jutsu works like a rubber band. One end is anchored in your home dimension, and the other end can be stretched to another realm. When summoning a toad, whose anchor is at Mount Myoboku, you stretch their rubber band and anchor it to your dimension with their chakra. When their chakra runs out, it releases the rubber band, sending them back to their realm. Hence why they don't need another summoning to go back home. With Naruto's reserves, he could have stayed at Myoboku for months. Unfortunately, you can only stretch another's rubber band while in your anchored dimension. If you tried otherwise, you would release your own before completing the jutsu. When Ma had summoned him home to battle pain, she wasn't actually summoning him. Instead, she released his rubber band and used her location as a beacon for his arrival. Once there, he'd immediately summoned the other toads to fight with him. Seeing as how the only ones who were able to summon him were anchored at Mount Myoboku, they couldn't actually get him back to the elemental nations. However, he could send messages home through them. By giving the toads a message, they could pass it along to the slugs, who could reverse summon Tsunade and give it to her. She, in turn, could give the slugs a message to give to him through the toads. That is, assuming she'd been freed from the infinite Tsukuyomi. He had to wait till morning to gain enough chakra to summon Pa. However, they had decided to use Sage Mode, both because they did not know how much it would take to stretch Pa rubber band to this new dimension, and also to help Kurama recover his chakra faster. His ridiculous reserves would normally take over a year to refill, however, by boosting it with natural energy, the wait could be as short as several months, so long as they didn't use it too much. He'd been about to summon Pa when he sensed Raven walking towards the roof with his enhanced senses, and had decided to wait for her. You know about Senjutsu? Naruto asks, surprised. Yes, though most people here just think they are wise old men. Well, while all the other sages I met were old, only Ma, Pa, and Super Gramps were wise. The other two, well, one was senile and Ero Sennin was a pervert. He chuckled, and Raven was curious about the fondness in his voice. He'd probably yell at me for calling him that. Well, no one wants to be called a pervert, she replied offhandedly as she sat down beside him. He didn't, but not for the reason you'd think. He laughed again, confusing Raven. When I first met him, I called him a pervert. You know what he said to me? She shook her head. Using his best Jiraiya voice, he bellowed, I am not just a pervert. I'm a super pervert. Raven, for the second time in years, flat out laughed. To Naruto, it was a beautiful sound. Back in the tower, the other titans shivered, feeling a disturbance in the natural order of things. As her laughter died down, he continued. Despite his perverted nature, Jiraiya was a great person. He was like a father to me. Though he spoke with only fondness, Raven noticed his use of past tense. Was, she asks. Naruto looked down, a sad smile gracing his features, but still reaching his toad-like eyes. Yeah, he died how he lived, searching for peace. He was killed by his former student, Nagato. Raven gasped, but sensing that he wasn't finished, didn't interrupt him. Naruto turned and looked out towards the bay. He lost someone precious to him and lost his way. He thought that pain was the only way to peace, perverting Jiraiya's teachings. I actually learned Senjutsu so I could defeat him, and when I finally did, I had to decide whether or not to kill him. I wanted to. I really did. He took away one of my most precious people, then attacked my home, but I knew it wasn't what Jiraiya, so I let him go. He turned back to her, and she could see a tear forming in his still yellow eyes. And you know what? I'm glad I did. This shocked Raven. If it had been her, she probably would have killed him, despite being a hero. He took away his father in all but blood. Because I did, he was able to redeem himself. He gave his life to save a lot of people that he had hurt. He put his faith in me to find peace where he had failed. Naruto, she let out softly. This boy, no, this man, had been through so much, and she had a feeling this wasn't even half of it, and yet he was still so happy. He hadn't become jaded or closed off like so many other heroes who had suffered had. I'm sure he'd be proud of you, she said. She knew he didn't want an apology for bringing up old memories. He could have stopped at any time, but for some reason, he trusted her enough to tell her this, to let her into his past. She was glad he did. Thinking back on everything that had happened since Pain's invasion, especially a certain distraction jutsu against Kagaya, Naruto chuckled. I'm sure he would. He agreed. Now, enough depressing stories, I've got to summon Pa before Sage Mode runs out. Technically, with Kurama's help, he could keep up Sage Mode indefinitely, but he was currently resting, and he wasn't going to wake him up for this. Startled as he grabbed her hand and pulled her to her feet with him, she asks, Pa, as in the Sage Pa. He nodded. Do you want me to leave? He shook his head. Nah, I'm sure he'd love to meet you. He took a step back, not realizing, unlike Raven, how close they'd been. Now, stand back a little bit. He raised his good arm to his mouth before a thought occurred to Raven. Wait. He stopped. Yeah, if you can summon him here, does that mean he can summon you back home? For some reason, that thought didn't sit well with her. No, it's a bit complicated, but he can't. I can summon him here, and he can summon me to his home for a short period of time, but he can't summon me back to my home. Oh, she replied, curious as to why she was happy at that answer. He nodded and bit his thumb, not really surprising Raven seeing as how most summoning involved blood of some sort. He performed a few seals with his hand, then slammed it on the ground with a call of Kuchio's no Jutsu. Naruto released Sage Mode as the smoke cleared, revealing an old toad in a cloak. He was about waist high with a spike of hair at the back of his head, a goatee, and the thickest eyebrows she had ever seen. Off in another dimension, two spandex-clad men shouted about a challenge to their youthful brows. He kind of reminded her of that green alien from that movie Beast Boy had forced her to watch. What was his name again? Yoga or something? It didn't really matter. She was surprised when it spoke in a weird language. Hey, who summoned me? He looked at them, shocked. Naruto boy, you're alive. Hey pa, how've you be ow? Naruto rubbed the growing lump on his head while the toad stood over him, stick in hand. What was that for? He shouted in indignation. That's for not summoning me earlier. You had us worried sick. As a seeming afterthought, he whacked him again. Ow, what was that one for? That one was from Ma. Would you have preferred to summon her so she could hit you instead? Thinking back to her rolling pin of pain, he shuddered. No, I wouldn't, he said, defeated. Good boy. He turned to Raven. And who's this pretty lass? He asked with a smile, which soon turned to an expression of horror. This better not be why you didn't summon us earlier. You are not turning into a pervert like Jiraiya boy. Ma would kill us both. What are you talking about pa? He asked, before turning red as his meaning sank in. Of course not, are you crazy? I just met her. Besides, it would never get to Ma. Ba-chan and Sakura would kill first. Then they'd find a way to bring me back and do it again. Off to the side, Raven just watched the odd spectacle. This is what the others feel like watching us talk, isn't it? Naruto paused, remembering his friend. Oi pa, this is Raven-chan. He hopped over to her. Nice to meet you Raven. My name is Fukasaku, but you can just call me pa like everyone else. Naruto, knowing that she couldn't understand him, translated. He said his name's Fukasaku but that you should call him pa. The old toad looked at him questioningly until Raven replied, it is an honor to meet you, Sage Pa. She gave a little bow, feeling a little stupid for bowing to a toad. What's she saying Naruto boy? And why's she talking like that? Well pa, people here speak a different language. I can understand her, and she can understand me, but everyone else is out of the loop. As for what she said it was an honor to meet you, Sage Pa. Finally, some respect, he exclaims, before asking, so where is here? And what happened to your arm? You might want to sit down pa, it's a long story. He said while sitting down and motioned for Raven to join them. He told Pa how his final clash with Sasuke propelled him between dimensions, how he landed here, and everything else that had happened, all the while translating whatever comments Pa made for Raven, and vice versa. Pa chuckled. Only you, Naruto boy. Only you. What's that supposed to mean? He shouted, forgetting to translate. You're always getting into the most ridiculous situations. I mean, when has anything gone according to plan for you? Hey, I guess you're right. He responded, before telling Raven the gist of the conversation. Now, with that over, he asked the question that had been plaguing his thoughts but been too scared to ask. Pa, he asks, more serious than Raven had ever seen him. What happened after I left? Is everyone okay? Hey, don't you worry Naruto boy, everyone's fine. Naruto let out a sigh of relief. It seems like you really got through to Sasuke. After you disappeared, he was apparently racked with guilt. He dispelled the infinite Tsukuyomi with that eye of his before turning himself in. Everyone's worried sick about you, but no one really thinks you're dead. Naruto lets out a shaky breath as the fear he's been holding onto since his arrival left him. They're okay. He let out in a breathy whisper. He'd been hoping against hope that this would be the case, but with how Sasuke had been acting, he'd feared the worst. However, he did what he did best. He shouldered that pain and moved on. However, it had still weighed heavily on his heart, and with that weight now gone, he was overwhelmed with emotion. They're okay, he shouted this time, and leapt up, bringing Raven with him. He embraced her and spun in a circle before realizing what he was going. Setting her back down and quickly backing away, he started apologizing. Red-faced, she managed to get out, it's fine, Naruto. While she still didn't know everything that had happened, from what she'd learned during their conversation, most of his world had been trapped in an infinite illusion of some sort. How he'd remained so cheerful was beyond her. Knowing that they were free must have been an immense relief. She figured that was why she wasn't pounding him into the ground with her powers for hugging her like that. Before anyone could say anything else, the door to the roof slammed open. Yo BB. You up here? Cyborg called looking around. Yo Raven, Naruto, you guys seen? He then caught sight of Pa. Now, to be fair, most of the time when he sees a large green animal, it's usually Beast Boy. Unfortunately, this was not one of those times. There you are BB. We gotta go. I got Robin in on the stankball game. Took some blackmail, but I did it. He yelled, grabbing Pa. Unhand me metal man, Pa yelled, whacking him on the head with his stick. From the ground, Cyborg lifted up a finger. You're not BB, he said shakily, before collapsing back to the ground with swirls in his good eye. After Pa left with a message for someone called Tsunade, whom she learned was the one Naruto affectionately called Ba-chan, Raven and Naruto went for breakfast, the still unconscious Cyborg floating behind them with her magic. As they rode the elevator, he noticed something. Did you cut your hair? Yes, she replied simply. She'd done it last night before falling asleep, not wanting to deal with the tangles in the morning. It suits you, he commented, causing her to blush. It really did. She had looked good with her long hair, but this Heim-style cut really seemed to fit her. It made her even more beautiful. Wait, what? Luckily for them, their blushes had died down before the elevator deposited them in the main room, which consisted of a kitchen, the command area, the TV, and a gorgeous view over the city. Upon entering, 3 pairs of curious eyes locked on them. What happened to him? Robin asked, referring to the still floating cyborg. Raven smirked. He lost a fight with a toad, she said with her usual snark. Robin and Starfire shared confused looks as Beast Boy, who had paused his video game, burst out laughing. Ha ha ha. As the duo went to the kitchen area for some food, after Raven had floated Cyborg over to the couch, Starfire noticed their apparent closeness, and uncharacteristically smirked. While she was still naive in many things, romance was no longer one of them. When Titan's Tower was first built, she had gone to the store of books to get materials to learn of the Earth culture. One of the books must have had the wrong title though. She'd bought a book on the shades of gray, fascinated that Earth apparently had 50 different types. When she first read it, she turned red enough that her hair seemed pale in comparison. Quickly hiding it under her bed, she had vowed never to open it again. However, after Kitten had tried to steal Robin, she decided to look at the book one last time for some help to Sejik Wu Robin. When she read it, though, she'd found she quite liked it. Since then, she had gotten many similar books, though she was careful to hide them from her teammates. Yes, it's true. Starfire is a closet pervert. Somewhere up in heaven, Jiraiya cheers in victory. As such, she's able to see the attraction between the two, even if they did not. Determined to get them together, both to help her friend and have one less rival for Robin's affection, she formulated a plan. Floating over to the duo as they finished preparing their breakfast, or tea in Raven's case, Starfire innocently asks, "Friend Raven, could you ask Naruto if we may share the lip contact?" All activity screeches to a halt, only the sound of a few plates shattering, courtesy of some random spikes in magic, breaking the silence. All eyes, even the now awake cyborgs, turned to her. Before Raven could respond, Robin yelled, "What? Why?" Starfire smiled. She had not considered this. She knew from her reading that jealousy could be used to help one realize that they had the feelings, but had only meant to use it on Raven. Now, it appeared that it had worked on Robin as well. Pretending that she did not realize why he had asked that, she replied, "My people can learn any language through lip contact, and I wish to converse with friend Naruto." As Robin tried to explain to the seemingly oblivious alien why you can't just kiss a guy, Raven reluctantly conveyed her request to Naruto. As much as she, for some reason, disliked the idea, she could see the practicality of it. However, his response totally shocked the Titans, who did not need to know his language to understand him. What? No, no, no. Not doing that. Nah. He rapidly shook his head, his palm out in a defensive position. Why not? She asks, confused. Most guys would give their right arm to kiss her, no pun intended, so why did he refuse? Oh no, don't tell me he's gay. She thought, unaware of the similar thoughts running through the other Titans' heads. No more super-powered kisses. I've already had a toad kiss me to place me in an illusion world and nearly had my soul sucked out by another one. No more. If I'm going to kiss someone, it's going to be a nice, non-powered kiss with a girl I like. Naruto denied vehemently. Raven sighed in relief. So you're not gay? She asked for clarification. Naruto shuddered, remembering how his first kiss had been taken by a certain Uchiha. Kami no. Raven smiled at that, though she wondered why she cared so much. It wasn't like she thought being gay was wrong. Wait, your soul was almost sucked out. That must have been one hell of a kiss, she thought, annoyed. Yeah, that chick was crazier than the snake lady. If I hadn't switched with a cage bushin, she would have gotten me. Kami, sometimes I wish I didn't get their memories. He mumbled that last part, though Raven heard it. Despite not fully understanding, she was pleased to know he hadn't enjoyed it. Looking back at her lost teammates, she summed up his response. He said no. Seemed like a whole lot more than that. Cyborg commented. Yeah, what did he say? Beast Boy questioned excitedly. Turning back to her tea, she replied cryptically, something about a toad and his soul. Beside her, Naruto chuckled, being able to guess why she'd said that. She may hide it, but he could tell she was a prankster, if in words instead of action. Oh yeah, Cyborg suddenly rounded on Beast Boy and hit him upside the head. Dude, why'd you do that? He complained. My poor head. He whined as a comically large tear formed in his eye. That was for earlier, yo. What do you mean, that was for earlier? What's going on? Naruto asks, confused as the duo argued. Cyborg thinks that Pa was Beast Boy, so he's getting revenge for getting knocked out earlier. She answered, taking a sip of her tea. But he looks nothing like Pa. He can change into animals, but they're always green. She explained, then thought for a moment. She was pretty sure he'd realized that it hadn't been Beast Boy. It was probably just the head injury. Really? He commented, seeming speculative before looking back at the duo. Should we stop them? Nah, they'll figure it out. She replied with a smirk, which was returned full force. Please, explain why it is bad to be the old maid. Starfire questioned, not really getting the game. After Cyborg and Beast Boy resolved their differences, Starfire had convinced them all to play a game to bond with their new friend. She had insisted that Naruto and Raven sit together. Raven had planned on researching a translation spell for Naruto, but he'd been so excited once she explained what Starfire wanted that she couldn't say no. Raven was currently sharing a deck with Naruto, seeing as how he couldn't really hold his cards right and play with just one hand. Inside his mindscape, the now awake Kurama chuckled silently to himself. He considered reminding Naruto that he could just make a temporary arm with his unique hinge, but he decided that he'd rather let Naruto suffer, than make him feel stupid later. It had nothing to do with the fact that the brat enjoyed being near the half-demon. Nothing at all. Cyborg had offered to build him a replacement arm later, but the idea of a metal arm just reminded him too much of Sasori. As Starfire finished her question, 3 large metal objects flew past the window behind her. Whoa, what was that? Cyborg shouted. Giant worms. Beast Boy questioned. Just then the 3 objects flew back into view, revealing them to be spaceships, with 2 identical ships firing energy beams at the third. Don't think so. Raven replied dryly. Titans, go, Robin shouted as they all ran out of the room, with Raven dragging Naruto behind them. She didn't know him nearly as well as she'd like, but she knew he was a fighter, and that he was a good person. He'd follow whether she told him to stay or not. Better have him with them so she could make sure he didn't overdo it with his injuries. The team, plus 1 interdimensional shinobi, ran onto the roof to get a better view. From there, they could see that one ship looked similar to a rocket, while the smaller pursuers resembled stingrays. In an impressive display of flying, the rocket executed a somersault, flying past his enemies. Whoever he is, the guy's a good pilot. Cyborg commented. The ship weaved between enemy fire before rising up above one of the rays, taking it out with twin blue beams. That guy's a great pilot, exclaimed Robin. So, should we do something? Naruto asks. We don't know who they are, or who the good guy is. Raven commented. Her reasoning made sense, but looking back at the others, it was clear who they were rooting for. Just then a figure launched from the rocket, landing on the remaining enemy ship. He crawled up the side before slamming his fists into the glowing red light. Did he just take down that ship with his bare hands? Robin asked in disbelief. Looks like it. Cyborg confirmed before the now smoking ship flew past them, headed straight for the city. Come on man, you can do it. Cyborg encouraged the rider. As it neared the city, He jerked the ship off course to crash in the uninhabited woods outside the city, saving the inhabitants. Naruto's respect for the man rose. They quickly rushed to the crash site to check on the guy. When they arrived, a silver man emerged from the flames. It takes more than a plasmatic implosion to bring down Valor, he said, taking a dramatic pose. Was he just waiting for us to arrive to leave the crash? 'Cause it took us several minutes to get here, Naruto thought with a sweat drop. Starfire took a quick picture with a large camera, the flash blinding him for a second. Oi, where'd she get that? Because I know she didn't have it earlier. Her tight suit clearly had no space for it in. Where'd it go? He thought in confusion, seeing as it was now gone. As Valor walked towards them, his abandoned ship landed dramatically behind him. That was some amazing flying, Robin complimented. Thanks. Valor of Vernathea, pleased to meet you. I'm Robin, and we're the Teen Titans. That's Raven, Naruto, Beast Boy, he said, pointing to each member in turn. Well, he is staying with us. I guess that makes him a temporary Titan, Raven thought. Should have asked first before introducing him as one though. Cyborg. Said person extended his hand, shaking Valor's hand. Man, you sure know how to make an entrance. It's all in a day's work, he said, smirking. A chibified Beast Boy, his eyes sparkling, Axe, you do that every day. If it was possible, the sparkling became even brighter. The hell, did he just shape-shift into that thing? Naruto wondered. Unfortunately not Kit. It's more like that damned sunset genjutsu those bowl-cut friends of yours use. Kurama corrected. Be grateful it isn't worse than this. I don't think I could take living with anything as bad as that damned illusion. Naruto shuddered at the thought, then became even more confused. But he doesn't even have chakra. How is he doing it? Lee can't use chakra outside his body, yet he still managed. However the changeling does it, it's just as unbreakable. It defies all logic. No, most days I fight more than just two of them. Valor replied arrogantly, his teeth shining. Number. It's just like Guy. He looked around, only to see Raven chibified as well. Number. Anyone but her. I won't lose her to this. He quickly shook her, thankfully dispelling the illusion. When she looked at him, annoyed, he pointed at Beast Boy. You are not doing that. She looked over, then blanched at her still transformed teammate. I wasn't doing that, she denied. Yes, you were. Thinking he was joking, she looked back into his eyes, only to find him dead serious. She shuddered. Thanks. No problem. Valor, who had been watching their interaction with a confident smile, let his face fall to one of displeasure when he spotted Starfire. Valor, I welcome you to Earth. She greeted cheerfully. I see you have a Tamaranian. He commented with carefully disguised distaste, something Naruto noticed. After spending the first half of your life hated, it was something you learned to pick up on. His newfound respect of the man immediately fell. It was clear that he was judging her, for what he didn't know, but they clearly hadn't met before. Yeah, Robin confirmed. Starfire's part of the team. So, who were those guys? Cyborg inquired. They were not guys at all. He replied, his frown becoming a smirk. After hearing that the Locrics were machines bent on galactic domination, and that Valor was going to blow up their home world with something called the Eradicator, Robin had volunteered his team to help. He'd offered to let Naruto stay behind, but he was sure that he could take them, even with only one arm. On his ship, the Titans listened in rapt fascination. It was me versus 20 of them. They had me surrounded. There were Crixies to the left of me, Crixies to the right. Things weren't looking good for Valor. What did you do? Cyborg asked excitedly. Naruto sat off to the side. I don't understand a word he just said, but he's a pretty good storyteller. Well, I certainly wasn't going to let them get me, he said, full of confidence, so I led them to a trap, short-circuited the lot of them, and escaped without a scratch. Dude, those Crixies didn't know what was coming. Beast Boy said in awe. Valor chuckled. They sure didn't, son. The Titans all turned to each other with wide smiles, even Raven, prompting Naruto to sweat drop for the second time that day. Just installed a new neutron turbo engine. He placed a hand on Cyborg's shoulder. You wanna give her a spin? He asked, pointing to the ship's controls. Cyborg looked back at him, tears of joy streaming from his good eye. A bigga dee ha da da. He asked in disbelief, pointing to himself, then back at the controls, before seemingly drooling in pleasure. I think that's a yes. Raven unnecessarily translated for Valor, who allowed Cyborg to jump onto the controls. He then dragged Robin to another chair. Robin, why don't you navigate? As he sat down in the chair, numerous holographic displays popped up. Ooh, he odd. Raven, Beast Boy, man the blasters. Cool. Beast Boy exclaimed as he sped past Raven to his station. Can I blast whoever I want? She asked in annoyance, walking to hers. Naruto, why don't you? Naruto cut him off, pointing to his mouth. Oh, that's right, you can't understand me. Well, I can't place you at the controls if we're going to be attacked. Still, you're a fine man, he said as he clapped him on the back, though he failed to move the shinobi. He then went to stand dramatically at his command chair, completely bypassing Starfire, which Naruto noted. Starfire looked at him hopefully as she waited. When no offer came, is there not a task for me? I also wish to be useful. Before he could reply, the ship was rocked by an explosion, throwing Starfire around. Intruders. The silver alien shouted. The cargo hold has been compromised. The Locrix. Robin acts. Thereafter the Eradicator. Cyborg, keep us on course and keep an eye out for more. He ordered. Can do. You four, come with me. He continued, indicating Raven, Beast Boy, Robin, and Naruto. As they left the bridge, Starfire followed them. Upon their arrival, Valor blasted the leading robot with some red energy beams from his eyes, as the rest of the Titans jumped down behind him. I'll take the ugly one. Valor commented, before the opposing groups leapt at each other. Valor defeated two in close combat as Beast Boy first smashed one as a gorilla, before climbing onto a second as a squirrel. Behind him, another was encased in black energy as Raven threw it into another. Robin dodged several tentacle-like limbs, before he jumping up to the roof and launching himself into a drop kick smashing into one. He had to quickly backflip out of range of several other limbs that attempted to skewer him. As more shot towards him, the bots failed to notice the small green rodent running atop them. Said rodent jumped into the air before shifting into an alligator and flying chomped one, then it rapidly shifted into a triceratops to ram another. Off to the side, Starfire and Naruto were blasting through a large group with a mixture of starbolts and Rasengans. Robin missed an arm and was thrown into the wall. Watch out, they can sting you. Valor warned as he held back an enemy. Just as warned, several protrusions attempted to impale Robin, which he dodged, before running along the curved walls, avoiding the rest in an impressive display of acrobatics. Jumping down, he threw two boomerangs, which curved around before both hitting one dead center. Nice shot. Valor grunted as he threw away his opponent. Thanks. Robin looked over the room, before two more mechs landed in front of them. Think you can handle these two? The alien questioned, receiving a confident, got it. In return. As Valor flew over the scene, he saw Raven blast a Crixie that was about to fry the bomb, before it got back up. Hit it in the central processor, he suggested, before flying towards the recovering bot. Like this. He yelled as he punched a hole straight through its chest. As several more surrounded them, Raven fired off several sharp blasts of energy that pierced each one in the indicated area. They stood still for a moment, before all falling in sync. Hey, remind me to stay on your good side. He commented. Making his way over to the bomb, he watched Beast Boy take out several in succession. Nice work, son. He complimented, rubbing his hair. A robot began to sneak up behind him, before being blasted away by a bolt of green energy. It stumbled back into the Eradicator before falling to the ground. The bomb beeped a few times, before calming down. Watch it. Are you trying to blow up the ship? He yelled in Starfire's face. Naruto, who was next to her, frowned. Sure, she made a mistake, but she'd done it while protecting him. I will be more careful next time. She apologized. There won't be a next time. He declined harshly before storming off and took out the remaining Locrix as she looked on, hurt. Naruto nudged her to grab her attention, told her, hey, don't listen to that guy. You were just protecting a comrade, and we're still in one piece. He gave her a thumbs up and smiled. You did good. While she still couldn't understand, his message must have gotten across, as she gave him a small smile. Yes, thank you, friend Naruto. Back with Valor, the rest of the Titans were in awe of his decimation of the remaining forces. That was awesome. Cool. Not bad, commented Beast Boy, Robin, and Raven, respectively. Okay team, back to the bridge. We need to be ready in case they are foolish enough to launch another attack. As they walked past him to the bridge, Naruto heard Starfire speak, and decided stay back to listen, hidden from both of the. Valor seemed to have a grudge against Starfire, which both he and Kurama could easily sense, and he wanted to make sure that his friend was safe. I wish to apologize. I did not mean to endanger your ship. I was only trying to help. He turned back to face her with glowing eyes, and said in a voice dripping with contempt, I don't need help from a stupid troc. Causing Starfire to gasp. Later, as they walked towards the bridge, Naruto listened to the others talk among each other. He assumed they were talking about how great Valor was, as he heard his name mentioned several times. Starfire trailed behind them, looking depressed, and Naruto seethed inside. He had no idea what a troc was, but he could tell it was an insult. A horrible one at that, if her reaction was any indication. He'd called her that several times while he insulted her. He walked away after about a minute of verbal abuse. It was a good thing he had, because he was one insult away from having a Rasengan shoved up his ass, and Kurama's encouragement to do so hadn't really helped. Usually, the fox didn't take an interest in humans, but apparently he'd taken a liking to her. With his negative emotion sensing, he could easily tell that his host's alien friend didn't have a single mean bone in her body. That, coupled with her innocent joy, and he'd been unable to resist growing fond of her in the short time they'd been in this dimension. From the very beginning Naruto had to restrain himself from interfering. Only the threat of the Locrix looming over them, which they needed his help stop, kept him from doing so. As much as they wished it were otherwise, he had not lied about them. Kurama had confirmed that he hadn't told a single lie since they'd met. He might be a bastard, but at least he's an honest bastard. He thought dryly. He wanted to comfort Starfire, but he didn't want to make a scene in front of her friends. Robin noticed Starfire hanging back, and called, Starfire, come on. We don't want to be late for the briefing. Last one, there's a rotten egg. Beast Boy challenged, seemingly oblivious to his teammates' mood as he rushed off. As the others moved to join him, Naruto came to a decision and grabbed Raven by the arm. Unable to follow due to said arm, the three boys soon left them behind. Naruto, she questioned, before noticing Starfire. She wondered why she hadn't run off with the others. Raven, I need you to tell Starfire to kiss me, he said with a frown. What? She yelled, surprised. Why? I thought you didn't want to do that. Her exclamation was enough to rouse some curiosity in her depressed teammate. Something bad happened. I need to talk to her about it. Please, he explained. Raven turned to look back at Starfire before arguing some more, only to stop as she finally noticed the look in her friend's eyes. Wondering what the hell happened, and seeing that Naruto seemed to know, she obliged. Starfire, she stated, gently to get her attention. Yes, friend Raven, she put on a smile so fake that it physically hurt Naruto. Naruto said he needs to talk to you. Okay. She waited for him to tell Raven what he wanted to say, but when he didn't, she looked at her female friend, confused. Her concern for her friend far outweighing her distaste of them kissing, she clarified. Himself. He wants you to kiss him so you can talk. She tilted her head. I thought he did not want to do the lip contact. She was far too depressed by Valor's words to be thinking about getting the two together. He said it's important. She looked back at their blonde companion and saw the serious expression on his face. Okay, she said, hesitantly. She walked forward and pressed her lips against him. There was no passion there. Both were stiff with their arms hanging at their sides. Naruto, as in tune with his body as he was, noticed a flow of energy between them. It wasn't chakra, but it was similar. While Kurama could have blocked it, he knew what was going on and let it pass. After several seconds, she broke contact and stepped back. Can you understand me? Naruto questioned. Yes, friend Naruto. It is good to finally converse with you. She replied with a small amount of her usual cheer entering her voice. Do you want Raven here? I do not understand, here for what? She questioned, not knowing that he knew of the other alien's animosity towards her. Valor, he said, confusing Raven and drawing a look of sad understanding from the redhead. She may stay, she conceded, knowing that her friend would get the answer sooner or later now that she knew something was going on. She prepared for him to start questioning her. Are you alright? He asked with a gentleness that surprised the two girls. Of course. She began with her false smile, only to sigh, knowing he would not be fooled by it. No, I am not alright. She corrected herself and hugged her arms against her chest, fighting back tears. Naruto and Raven locked gazes, before nodding. Together, they hugged their friend, who allowed her pent-up tears to fall. They sat there for a while, letting her cry in their arms. After she had finished crying, he asked, "Are you feeling better?" She nodded, then he asked the question that had been weighing on his mind. "Good. Now, can you tell me what Trock means?" They both felt her flinch at the word. "Please," he continued, "I need to know what he called you." Now, Raven was starting to put the pieces together. And the picture it made wasn't pleasant. At some point, Valor had insulted Starfire, maybe done worse. And she hadn't noticed because she'd been too wrapped up in her hero worship. "It means nothing," she responded as she took a step back from the group hug, confusing Naruto for a second, before the true meaning hit. "That bastard." Naruto spat venomously. Raven, who couldn't understand when Starfire spoke in Elemental, was concerned at what could make her normally happy friend curse like she couldn't understand. He elaborated. "Valor was calling her Trock on the cargo hold after you guys left. I stayed behind because I could tell he didn't like her." He paused, before looking at Raven dead in the eyes. "It means nothing." He was calling her a nothing, like she doesn't matter. Like she's worthless. Inside his mindscape, Kurama growled, doing his best to keep his anger from seeping between their link. Raven took a calming breath before asking, "Why would he call you such a name?" She asked, maintaining her calm demeanor for her friend's sake. "There are those on other planets that feel like Tamaranians are inferior. Trock is what they call us." "He's calling you that, just because you're a Tamaranian?" She asks, both for clarification and for Naruto. He, in turn, understood her situation from his childhood. "And you know that if you retaliate, you'll just be proving him right." Her eyes lifted in understanding. "Yes. You know what it's like to be judged for a reason outside of your control." "Yay, I know what it feels like to be judged. The glares, the name calling, the pain of being all alone." Seeing their confusion mingled with concern, he explained. "For a long time, my village hated me for Kurama. Before being sealed into me, he was placed under a powerful illusion and forced to attack my home. A lot of good people died that night, and even though it wasn't his fault, they didn't know that, and they hated him. Whenever they looked at me, they could only see him." The girls gasped, and inside the seal, Kurama spoke, "Sorry about that, Kit. It wasn't your fault. We both know that," he continued. "So yes, I know what it feels like." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "But you are not what other people say you are. You are your own person, and both Raven and I know how great a person that is. You are smart and brave. You are not worthless. You're our friend." "He's right," Raven added, pulling Starfire into another hug. "I may not be very good at showing it, but I really care about you. All the Titans do," she said, pulling back. "Now, let's go tell Robin." Naruto, fully on board with that idea, was about to turn to head back to the bridge before Starfire's words stopped him. "Wait, perhaps we should wait to inform Robin later. I do not wish to endanger the mission." She spoke sadly. When she repeated it in Elemental for Naruto, he shook his head. "No, my sensei had a saying. Those who abandon the rules are scum, this is true. But those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. If we tell Robin, we might endanger the mission and become scum. If we don't, we are abandoning you, becoming less than scum." He thought for a moment before adding with a smile, "Besides, I'd gladly become scum for you." Raven nodded. "He's right. Robin needs to know." Starfire smiled, and nodded. "What took so long, Trock? We need to plan for the mission, and you're holding us up." Valor reprimanded as they entered the bridge. Before anyone could comment, however, an alarm blared. "More Crixies. Beast Boy axe." Valor typed rapidly on his command board. "No, mines." A hologram of said minefield appeared above the table. "A dirty Locrix trap. Our ship won't be able to pass through the minefield. If one goes, they'll all go." He turned back to face the newcomers. "This is a job for you, Troki. Get out there and move those mines." "Are you sure it's safe?" Robin asks. "It's just a few mines." Raven, understanding what he was doing, was about to come to her friend's defense before she beat her to it. "Valor, you are such a brave warrior. Are you sure you do not wish to move these devices yourself?" Starfire challenged. "Of course I could move them." He snapped back, "But I'm needed inside. Only an experienced pilot could navigate through here. Besides, your people can withstand the hostile conditions of space." Both girls scowled, but couldn't deny his logic. While Raven and Naruto stayed on the bridge to make sure Valor didn't do anything that could get their friend hurt, Starfire was putting on her headset by the airlock. Before she could leave, Cyborg approached her. "Are you sure you want to do this? I wish to prove my usefulness," she said, before a nearby screen lit up with Valor's image. "Let's get going. We haven't got all day, Troc," he said before the feed cut off. Up on the bridge, two people grit their teeth, but had decided to wait until after the current crisis to do anything about it. "Troc," Cyborg questioned. "What does that mean?" She turned around to exit. "It means nothing." Then, remembering her earlier conversation, added, "But he is wrong." Before leaving through the airlock, Cyborg was confused, but he shook it off. As everyone, aside from Naruto, sat in their stations, Starfire flew towards the minefield. "Nice and easy," Valor commented as she pushed the first mine out of the way. "We don't want any mistakes this time." "I will not make any," she declared with determination. Catching the gist of it, Naruto was both proud of his friend, and thoroughly annoyed at the man. They watched as Starfire moved several mines in rapid succession, creating a large enough gap in the field for the ship to pass through. As she released the last mine, however, the bridge crew noticed that it was floating towards another one. "Watch it, Troki. They're on a collision course," he shouted, slightly panicked. Starfire gasped, and rushed to stop it. "Gah, I can't watch," Beast Boy quailed, hiding his face in his hands. Bracing herself between the two mines, she groaned as she pushed back against them, just barely managing to stop their momentum before they touched, and let out a sigh of relief. Beast Boy uncovered an eye. "Did we blow up yet?" he asks. "Yep. That's why you're still talkin'," Raven remarked sarcastically, eliciting an amused snort from Naruto despite his foul mood. As Starfire flew away from the mines, one of her boots brushed its tip, activating it. "You tripped the detonator. You only have 20 seconds. Valor shouted in alarm. Determined, Starfire flew at the bomb. Inside, Robin unbuckled himself. "I'm going out there." "No, it's too dangerous," Valor denied. He sat back down, frustrated beyond belief. Starfire arrived at the bomb and pushed it out of sight. The bridge watched with bated breaths, before an enormous explosion lit the void. All the Titans looked on in horror, before Starfire's voice sounded over the communication link. "You may proceed safely," causing them to cheer while Valor grimaced in irritation. Never doubted her for a second, Beast Boy claimed as he wrapped his arms around Raven from behind, eliciting a silent growl from a certain blonde. "Raven, you really shouldn't worry so much." She scowled at him in annoyance, causing him to quickly release his grip on her. Starfire entered through the airlock, where Cyborg, Raven, and Naruto were waiting for her. "Way to go, Troki," Cyborg congratulated, his hand raised for a high five. This caused three reactions. Starfire gasped, Raven scowled, and Naruto, forgetting that he was most likely ignorant of the term's meaning, punched the teen into the wall, denting it. Before he could complain, Starfire marched up to him, poking him in the chest. "You do not call me that," she demanded. "But, Valor calls you Troc all the time." Cyborg, Raven hissed in agitation. "That does not make it right," Starfire said sadly, turning away as Cyborg crawled out of the wall. "It's an insult," Raven told Cyborg. "A bad one." But she said it didn't mean anything. "No," Starfire clarified. "I said it means nothing. When Valor calls me Troc, he is saying that I am worthless, a nothing." She went on to explain how other races look down upon Tamaranians as inferior, something Cyborg could relate to on two levels. "We were about to tell Robin before the minefield interrupted us," Raven informed her friend. "Okay, let's go find him," he responded. "And that's how we defeated Control Freak," Robin concluded, having regaled Valor with one of his tales. "Sounds like you handled your team well." He placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're a true leader. You remind me of myself when I was your age, Spike." At that, Robin gave an impossibly wide smile before being pulled into a noogie. Just then the bridge door opened. "Robin, can I get a word?" Cyborg asked as he entered with the others. Valor shot him a finger gun before he walked over. As he explained in a low whisper, Robin harshly questioned, "What?" "And that's what he's been calling her this whole time," Cyborg finished, still whispering. "Starfire, why didn't you say something?" he asks. Not giving them a chance to answer, he pounded his palm with a fist. "He will apologize. I'm going to make." "No, Robin," Starfire interrupted. Our mission is more important than my feelings. Naruto scowled. Whatever she'd said had stopped Robin. Even though logically he agreed that they should wait until after the mission to confront Valor, he was still itching to beat some sense into him. Before a decision could be made one way or another, an alarm blared. We've arrived at Sentian. Prepare for landing. As he says this, the ship had to dodge multiple plasma blasts. With a hard face, he growled, looks like they were expecting us. They quickly made their way to the ship's exit ramp. Okay Titans, here's the plan. Valor ordered. Cyborg and Robin, take the lead. Beast Boy, Raven, and Naruto, guard our escape route. I'm taking the quantum eradicator and putting an end to the filthy Crixies once and for all. Robin glared at the man. What about Starfire? He asks. Guard the ship Troc. He ordered as he prepped the eradicator. No, I am going with you. She declared. He yelled in response, I gave you an order. I do not take orders from you. If my friends go into danger, so do I. Besides, my people can withstand hostile conditions. She threw his earlier words back at him. As the ship landed, they were met with a horde of robots guarding the entrance to the canyon that led to their base. Let's do this, Valor said. Immediately, Robin and Cyborg attacked the enemy with a mixture of sonic blasts, birdarangs, and hand-to-hand, allowing Starfire and Valor, who was wearing the eradicator like an oversized backpack, passage to fly through the throng. Raven gathered her energy and blasted several droids off the canyon walls. Now that he had room to maneuver in, unlike back in the ship, Naruto summoned several clones as reinforcements, much to the surprise of the remaining Titans. Unfortunately, the Locrix had completely destroyed the environment on this planet, so much so that he could barely sense any natural energy, making Sage Mode nearly impossible. As he and his clones went to town on a large group of robots, though one clone went off somewhere, Beast Boy maneuvered through the tentacle limbs of another group before flying high above them. There, he transformed into a Brontosaurus, falling on and crushing his group. Reverting back to normal, he gave a proud smile. Before flinching back as several more landed by him. The clone that went off on its own follows Starfire and Valor. He was impressed with the ease she decimated several bots, but he frowned as he watched the silver alien repeatedly deny her offers of assistance in carrying the weight he was obviously struggling with. Inside the base, he saw Valor place and arm the device. It can't have been that easy. See Naruto, i.e. Clone Naruto thought. Sure enough, an iridescent blue barrier trapped Valor with his bomb. He watched with a mixture of awe and pride in his friend as she risked her life and forced her way through the barrier with brute strength before dragging the resisting man out. With only seconds to spare, she grabbed the injured Valor before flying away. Back with the other Titans, the robots suddenly shut down as Naruto received the information from his clone. They did it, Robin exclaimed, before Starfire flew out of the explosion carrying Valor, his arm draped across her shoulders for support. No, she did it. Cyborg corrected. Starfire, are you okay? Beast Boy asks. Valor requires medical attention. She replied. Valor stood facing the rest of the Titans on the roof of the tower, his right arm in a sling. Well, thank you for all your help. Don't thank us. Thank Starfire. Robin demanded, pointing at her. Yeah, she's the one who saved your sorry butt. Starfire shifted further into the group, a bit uncomfortable. Thank you, Starfire. He managed, though you could tell he was struggling. I have to admit you're not bad for a Troc. Upon saying the word, Naruto punched him in the jaw, knocking him to the ground. Cammy, that felt good. Hey, I was trying to pay her a compliment. He complained. Then why does it still sound like an insult? Raven said, glaring at the man. Spike, you understand. I didn't mean anything by it, it's just. Valor, Robin said, cutting him off, I think it's time for you to go. He stared at them before saying, I thought you Earthlings were alright. I guess I was wrong. You're just like the Trocs. He flew up to his ship before flying it away. I'm sorry Valor treated you like that. Robin apologized. If I'd known, I never would have let it happen. None of us would. Cyborg agreed. There is nothing you could have done. Starfire said. There will always be people who say mean words because you are different, and sometimes their minds cannot be changed. But there are many more people who do not judge others based on how they look or where they are from. Those are the people whose words truly matter.